You're listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the hard biblical questions because we dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
See the light. I want to see the light.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Give God 90. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Jerry Mitchell, and sitting here next to me is the only person in the world brave enough to attempt to keep me on track. And that is, well, she's the same reason dynamite comes in small packages. Let's just be honest. My lovely wife, Myra.
Hi, everyone.
Excuse me. We are live on a Thursday night. The chat is open if you are so interested in leaving us a message. We appreciate that. Of course, it's about 7:30 Eastern Time, United States, currently. Where you are, well, it depends on where in the world you are, right?
Right.
So, Universal Time, it should be, are you ready for this time check? Somewhere close to 0030 hours, or 12:30 a.m., from where we are tomorrow.
Right.
So, that's just one of the things that is you have to deal with when you're dealing with people all around the world, is trying to make it so that everybody can hear you, see, and will not see us tonight. We are not on Facebook tonight. Lots of reasons for that. Primarily, there's not a whole lot of people that really support Give God 90 that are left on Facebook. The biggest majority of people left on Facebook don't listen to us. So, but the good news is that after last week, our numbers for the podcast are way up, so that's good. The number of visitors on the website is way up for the month. That's really good. It's usually average for the month is between 300 and 400. We hit that about the 15th of the month. So we're doing good that way as well. People are going there and looking for things. Don't forget to order the books. Tradition and Truth, God's Universe, God's Rules. Excuse me, that's always a good thing to do. Hey, there's Jay.
Hi, Jay.
Glad to see you pop in, Jay. Of course, we appreciate it. One of the things that happened this week is there's a new president of the United States. Whether that's good or bad, time will tell. I have a feeling I know which way it's going to go, but had a friend of ours the other day message me and say, it's just been a rough day. And my response to that was, don't worry about what happens in Washington, D.C. Let's concentrate on doing the things we need to do from the throne room in heaven. And that's the best way to look at that. And that's what we're going to do. Because that's our job. We're going to concentrate on doing the things we're supposed to be doing. One of the reasons that we're not on Facebook is they began to censor people. And, not just conservatives. They were censoring businesses. One person had a shop where they sold T-shirts with flags on them from around the world. And Facebook said, well, you can't do that on Facebook. I don't know why, but they just chose to close them down. Closed down a business that, was making money. They were a profitable business. And, I just don't really see a need to support something like that. But since the creation of our physical world, you're right, Jay, we do serve a wonderful and awesome Father. Excuse me. Since creation of the world, communication has been important, right?
Right.
We communicate different ways. We express ourselves different ways. There's just this need for people to be able to understand each other. We're not like the animals. We don't we don't get the information that we need through sniffing different various body parts or where they've been or that kind of thing. We communicate, and people are the only ones who do that, and it's because we are made in the image of God. Even in the garden, when the Almighty asked Adam, "Where you at? What happened? What's going on?" My paraphrase, okay? He and Eve had the opportunity to speak freely, right? He could have said a lot of things, but his response was not really intelligent. He blamed the Almighty. He says, "Look, this is what happened, and it's all your fault, God, because you gave that woman to me," right? So, but before we go digging into the Bible, I want to look at a couple things from the Daily Mail. This was interesting. German Chancellor Angela Merkel regards Donald Trump's permanent ban from Twitter as problematic because it gives too much power to social media bosses, her spokesman said. Now, her and Trump didn't get along. Okay, Angela Merkel and Donald Trump did not get along. But what she is saying is, look, it's not up to private industry to censor people. It's not up to private industry to say who can say what. That's the government's job. And being from Germany, we can certainly understand that form of government, that way she did that. We're going to look at a different form of government here in a couple of minutes, much older than Germany, and you're going to see something a little different. Bloomberg, here's a good one. Alexei Navalny is the opposition leader to Vladimir Putin. Russian secret police apparently attempted to assassinate him about a year ago, and it didn't work. And he's worried that Twitter's decision to shut down Donald Trump's Twitter account is going to negatively affect politics, not just in the United States, but around the world. And it will. It doesn't have a choice but to do that. And he also, it's interesting. One of the things he says is, don't tell me that he was banned for using language that would cause people to want to riot. He said his opposition have used much worse language, and Twitter was perfectly happy letting them do the things they were doing. It's amazing that what we see, excuse me, with what's going on is so determined today. Let's look at a couple of governments that allowed people to speak their mind. And we're going to start someplace interesting. We're going to start with Esther chapter 5. Oh, no, we're not. I'm sorry. I missed one. We're going to start in Genesis chapter 41, verses 14 through 16.
Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And he shaved himself and changed his raiment and came unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace.
Okay. At that particular time in history, Pharaoh was, well, for lack of a better term, God with a little g, right? what he said goes. And he calls and he says, Joseph, I have a question for you. And he lays out his problem. And Joseph said, he spoke freely. He was free to speak openly in Pharaoh's court. Think about that. He was free to speak openly in Pharaoh's court. No questions asked. He could have said anything. And what does Joseph do? Joseph said, hey, it's not me doing this. It's the Almighty Creator doing this. Now let's go to Esther, chapter 5, verses 1 through 3.
On the third day, Esther put on her royal robes. Then she stood in the inner courtyard of the king's palace, facing the king's hall. The king was sitting on his royal throne in the hall, facing the doorway. The king saw Queen Esther standing in the courtyard. When he saw her, he was very pleased. He held out to her the gold scepter that was in his hand. So Esther went up to him and touched the end of the scepter. Then the king asked, "What is it, Queen Esther? What do you want to ask me? I will give you as much as half my kingdom."
Now, Esther, okay, you just couldn't walk into the king's court. Now, she probably had some pretty good access in being in her position. She probably could have went to him anywhere else in the kingdom, but she chose to put on her queenly garments. Queenly garments? Yeah, that's how you say that. And she presented herself in the court, right? And he looked. Now, the king probably, when he sees this, thought, ooh, what's going on? She must want something. So he allows her to come forward in the formal court and speak. Now, he offers her up to half of everything he owns, right? That was a lot. Mm-hmm. That would have been a really easy way for the Jews to get everything that the Almighty promised, because she could have taken everything from the Euphrates to the great river in Egypt, right?
Right.
And that would have been about half his kingdom. But she didn't. What did she want? Lunch. Come eat lunch. Kind of odd, but that's the way she presented that. Here's what I want you to take from this, though. He asked. She could have said anything she wanted to say at that time. She had the opportunity to speak freely. Now let's move ahead in time a few hundred years and look at John chapter 18. This is interesting.
Then Pilate went back inside the palace. He called Jesus to him and asked, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "Is that your own question, or did others tell you about me?" Pilate answered, "I am not a Jew. It was your own people and the leading priest who brought you before me. What have you done wrong?" Jesus said, "My kingdom does not belong to this world. If it belonged to the world, my servants would have fought to keep me from being given over to the Jewish leaders. But my kingdom is from another place." Pilate said, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. That is true. I was born for this, to tell people about the truth. That's why I came to the world, and everyone who belongs to the truth listens to me." Pilate says, "What is truth?" After he said this, he went out to the Jews again. He said to them, "I can find nothing to charge against this man."
Okay. Now here we see Yeshua standing in Pilate's court. Let me set that down. And what's really interesting is there's a conversation. Hi, Carol's joined us.
Hi,
Glad
Carol.
to see you, Carol. They're interacting. This is a transcript of a conversation that we read. Pilate asks, and Yeshua, much like Joseph, said, It's not about me, it's about the Father. Okay? He takes it right back to the basics. He says, this is something that you need to understand, Pilate, but I'm not sure you're going to get it. Pilate says, you're right, I'm not Jewish, I don't get it. That's the part of the conversation. But here's the interesting thing. He was free to speak in Pilate's judgment hall. Could have said anything he wanted. Pilate comes right out and says, are you better than me? That's what he's asking. Are you a king? Are you better than me? And he says, no. That's what you said. That's what you've heard. That's what these people are telling you. I'm not going to agree to that. Now, the way the conversation goes, it's kind of interesting. It doesn't take Pilate very long to realize he's being played, right? He's being played and he realizes it. Excuse me. Now, there's many more examples of people expressing themselves, communicating freely in the Bible. Think about Ruth and Boaz. Ruth goes down to Boaz and the instructions were, you don't say anything to him until he speaks to you. She followed those instructions. She spoke exactly what she needed to speak, very freely to do so after Boaz acknowledged her. It's interesting, though, as we look at history, a lot of times we get confused. In the United States, people have looked to the Constitution to protect their right to speak. People around the world have looked at the United States and the U.S. Constitution, specifically the First Amendment and the Bill of Rights, and said, that gives you the right to speak. Well, they've had the right to speak since Genesis chapter 3, right? You can say whatever you wanted to say. It doesn't matter how intelligent it is. Doesn't matter how stupid it might sound. God, it's your fault that we ate the apple. You gave me that woman. That's basically what Adam says. It doesn't sound very brilliant, does it? I mean, he did not put on a really good defense here. But he said so. Unfortunately, when the United States Constitution was written and ratified, it changed the concept that people were responsible for what they said, and it took it to a different level that they had now this given right to express themselves, and that has actually come to manifest in many ways that some people don't appreciate. Christian groups for years have been at odds with government agencies because they don't like people who produce pornography and express themselves through pornographic art, if you can call it that. They don't like that expression. They say, you need to do something about these people. That's terrible what they're doing. Well, now all of a sudden, it's Christian groups that are being censored, and they don't get it. What they have been attempting to do to other people is now turned around and come back on top of them, and they don't like it. They thought as long as we're on top of the world, as long as we're in charge, it's all good. Problem is now, they're not the ones in charge anymore, right? They have they've been willing to try and quiet other religions in various ways, but they have been a little successful. However, the Christian groups that are now affected, they don't really like this side of the First Amendment too much. And instead of going back to Scripture and saying, no, this was established long before the United States was even a government, they want to hang their hat, and they're choosing to die in this valley, and I don't know why. See, the problem isn't that a king or a government or even a God with a little g is silencing the voice of the people. The problem is a couple of people are now choosing to silence the people. The majority of the people. When, and this is going to sound funny, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and one of the news stories we were talking about is the Russian ambassador went to the United Nations and said, we have to do something about Twitter and Facebook being able to censor individual people. This isn't right. And we kind of were both taken back because, when we were growing up, we used to joke about Russian newspaper being called Pravda. They were putting out a very political piece of information every time you read an article. You didn't know whether it was truth or not, but it's what the government said was true. The desire for a particular political ideology or religious ideology that a couple of radical people have the ability to control is not only unbiblical, like I won't say it's anti-biblical, it's unbiblical. It reduces communication between people. It reduces the expression of ideas. It reduces us to less than what we had even 200 years ago when newspapers were the main source of information. What is being challenged goes far beyond politics. What's being challenged is a principle that our Creator actually established in Genesis in the garden. The ability to speak freely. The ability to express yourself. The ability to promote an idea. The ability to defend yourself. The ability that we look in the Bible and we see all of these people being able to do. And now, all of a sudden, just a couple of people have decided you no longer have that ability. Adam, in the garden, Adam was free to be as brilliant or as dumb as he could be. He chose dumb. Let's face it. There are people that do dumb stuff every day. But they should have the ability and the outlet to do that. If you want to stand on a mountaintop and shout that 2 + 2 = 5, go ahead. That's up to you. 99% of the rest of the world knows it's not true and it never will be. But if you think it's true and you want to promote the idea, go right ahead. If you think, if you think it's a good idea to take off all your clothes and paint your body blue or green or whatever the color is, they color it and run through the street, it might not be the smartest thing you've ever done, but go ahead. It displays your character is what it does. Jay, you're kind of right. The roles have switched. Satan has always been in, I shouldn't say it that way. The Creator was never one to claim he establishes any kind of sovereignty over the United States. The division of the nations that we read about in Deuteronomy comes around and it says that these divine beings have some control over the geographic locations. The only geographic location that the Almighty kept for himself was that little sliver of land we know as Israel. Everything else was given over to these other divine beings. Here's the interesting part of this. As long as the majority of people in the United States bowed to the Creator, the divine being that had control over this geographic location was bound to them. Now the majority of people are not bowing to the Creator of the universe. That divine being is no longer bound to them. He's bound to the people who want to go their own way. He's bound, he says, okay, well, whatever, he's willing. He was restricted. He's no longer restricted in what he does. We're responsible for the things we say and the way we express ourselves. Which is why, if you want to paint yourself red, run through the middle of town, go right ahead. You're free to do that. Might not be the wisest thing you've ever done, but you know what? There's a few civil laws that are going to say that, you've been bad. You shouldn't have done that. As long as you're willing to do that and abide by those things, we'll go right ahead. But we're responsible for our actions. We're responsible for what we say. As believers, we have a greater responsibility to make sure that what we say and what we do glorifies the Creator and not ourselves. In other words, what we do and what we say shouldn't be for selfish purposes. There will be another time in this world when what believers say will not be popular. It's not yet. We still have the opportunity to say, you know what, God loves you. And it would probably be a good idea if you lived the way He designed you to live. There's going to be a time when the majority of people resent that. Not yet, but it's getting close. So while you are able to speak freely, why not make it count? Why not speak to glorify the Almighty and not ourselves? Why not speak to make sure that what we say and what we do honors the Father and not ourselves, not a politician, not not a sports figure or a movie star. But let what you say reflect your character. And hopefully, if your character is such that we are honoring the Almighty, that's what's going to be reflected, and that's what people are going to see. So, don't look for us back on Facebook anytime soon until they change their methods. Now, that's not to say that we're not working on some projects where you're going to be able to see us. Okay? We were out today getting some video for a project that I'm putting together, and it's going to be interesting. I've never tried anything this aggressive before, but it's going to be interesting. Hopefully you're going to enjoy it in a few weeks when it's released, and maybe you'll even appreciate it and learn something from it. So as we work through all of this stuff, stick with us on the audio-only podcast, because that's kind of where we started with doing this kind of thing, and it's been good to us, and hopefully it will continue to be. So unless did you have anything you wanted to add to that? You've been awful quiet tonight.
Nope, just listening. Thanks everybody for joining us.
All right. Everyone, we do appreciate it. Don't forget, you have the ability, even with this, to share and like and all those good things. So go ahead, put this out there where it needs to be put out. We're on MeWe, and I'm still on Twitter, but I don't know for how much longer that's going to be. So go ahead and share this stuff out there. People need to hear this. And, just keep up what you're doing. So we really appreciate each and every one of you. And until next time, which would be Monday morning at 10 a.m. our time, right?
Yes.
We wish each and every one of you a blessed week.